Good morning, everyone. This also feels like a very much a full circle moment for me. I am actually born and raised in Alief, so it's really nice to be here. And I do have the absolute just feel so happy to be here just because I'm introducing some very powerful people in our community, and I just want to make sure that you all are able to continue to stay engaged in your community as you all hear from our speakers today. So, let's see here. Okay, so for our first speaker here, I will be introducing Ms. Crystal Hill Hernandez. Crystal is a senior service account manager at Amadeus, North America, and a passionate advocate for families navigating education and support systems in Harris County. As a mother of two, including a son with autism, she draws on her own experiences to ensure children and families have equitable access to the resources they need to thrive, with a focus on supporting underserved communities from the very start. Welcome, Crystal. Next, I will be introducing Joshua Williams. Joshua leads fatherhood initiatives at DePelchin Children's Center, bringing 6 years of experience in community engagement and program development. Passionate about supporting fathers and young men, he works to empower them as purposeful leaders in their homes and communities. Welcome, Joshua. And then our next speaker that I would like to introduce is Marcy Melvin. Marcy is a Senior Vice President of Clinical Policy for the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute and Deputy Director of the Hackett Center for Mental Health. With over 25 years of leadership in behavioral health and early childhood systems, she advances equitable, relationship-centered approaches that strengthen mental health services and improve outcomes. Welcome, Marcy. All righty, so now that we have met our incredible panelists here, I'm going to transition to a seat so you can see me better. It's okay. Everything's fine. All right. Does everyone have a mic? Perfect. Nobody saw that, right? Nobody. All righty. So our first question here. So our first question here is just a really simple question. So tell us about yourself and what inspired you to work in the field.
Oh, okay. I'll go first. So I don't work in childhood. I'd probably be the only person on this panel that does not work in childhood. I actually work in technology. But what inspired me to get into working in the environment of advocacy was that I have two sons. One has autism, and one is just a typical 4-year-old. We moved here to Houston after my divorce, and I was kind of like, I don't know where to start. We got here, and I realized that early childhood services in Harris County were not free. Where we came from, they were free, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I just got this job. I'm going to lose this job if I can't find childcare. And I just had to figure it out. And there was no one around me. We had no family. I had friends, but no one who had my situation going on. And so I was like, let me research. I mean, ask questions. No one could direct me on where to go. So I had to find all of this stuff myself. And so that's what got me really involved. I had to research it. And I say, you know, there's other parents in the same situation as I am. So let me be the one person that could be the resource for all those parents that I get to, you know, interact with in those waiting rooms when I'm waiting on my son, and I can give that information. So that's kind of how I got into all of this work.
I think this is on? Yes, very good. So my background is mental health. And I'm going to have to take you on a little journey to explain how I ended up here. But 75% of individuals with mental health diagnoses, those symptoms showed up in childhood. And so when thinking about treatment and prevention, well, we really needed to start younger. And so my interest has always been in working with children, adolescents, and families. Well, the other piece to know is brain development, right? So we know that almost 90% of brain development happens within the first 3 years of life. And those babies aren't in school. Where are they? They're at home. They're in childcare centers. And in order to optimize their brain development, it's important that the adults who are working with them have all of the resources and understand what are the ways to, like our keynote said, how to return, how to recognize a serve in order to return a serve. And so that's kind of how I got here. Because it's we look at, or I view kind of working with very young kids as a preventative measure of kind of future situations. While we can't stop adverse things from occurring, what we can do is optimize brain development so that when children are older, it better equips them to be able to manage and handle those adverse occurrences. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. Well, my name is Joshua. I'm also a product from A-Leaf, so it's good to be in this space in A-Leaf. The reason why I got into this work, actually I started doing parenting education years ago, before I got into the fatherhood space, and I realized is that working with parents, you notice that, hey, when you work with parents, they play the impact with the children. And years later, fatherhood came to my heart because I realized a lot of statistics have shown that when father is absent, right, or not present, it does impact the child, right? Impacts in a lot of capacity. So my heart was like, hey, let's try to break these stigmas, break this statistics, and let's highlight this father engagements. So I started doing father engagement for 6-7 years. I love working with fathers and father figures, right? Because I always don't want to live out the uncles, the male figures and roles, and work with them. It just shows me that, hey, fathers just need a place to talk. They need a support system because, again, we know that in services, there's a lot of services that are mom-driven, right? And there's no service for men. And so I say, hey, let's help our fathers let them know there is service in this space. So by doing so, got in just working with dads and kind of speak to their hearts and let them know the importance of your presence does impact your children, especially early childhood, and just kind of push the momentum, say, hey, you can be the impact, and just give them the skills and the service. And lastly, my heart does not highlight bad fathers, it's highlight good fathers. There's fathers out there that are working and trying, but they just need that support. And so kind of creating that space and kind of being a servant to them and just kind of got me here to say, hey, let's talk about how supporting fathers do impact their mental health, physical health, and emotional health. And when you have that, it can also impact their children.
Thank you for that. So very, very powerful panelist, right? So I'll start really mellow today. And so the first question that I would like to ask, we'll start with you, Joshua. So what can we do as, we see a lot of organizations and we have a lot of, community partners and things like that. But in regards to overall family health, how can parents be more engaged in the journey for our children?
Perfect. Well, the key is this. As I realized that support groups is important, right? And I think when you have support systems, that group sessions, like what we do a lot of group sessions with our fathers. And we love partnering with community partners because a lot of times, a lot of community partners don't have a space for help with fathers. So we try to say, hey, can we be that facilitator? Can we be that group part of the extension of your services? So what we do is when we have that space, we now focus on that physical, mental health in our sessions. So we're making sure those dads or father figures are getting that support system. So I think with that journey is that finding a fatherhood initiative program or find somebody who has that passion and partner with them so they can help it with that help that you are looking for.
And you could also look at Healthy Start. That's at Harris County Public Health. And I am the program manager for Healthy Start. And we like to help out our families with fathers and caregivers and all of that. So thank you. And also, I did want to also get your point of view, Crystal, on what we can do as, to stay engaged in the journey in parenthood.
I think from parenthood, you have to be your child's biggest advocate because no one should know your child better than you. A lot of times I find out that the teachers know your children better than you, but no one should know your child better than you. Be engaged in what's going on at the school because the school is just a small support of your child's development. There's activities, there are social programs that we can enroll our children in where they get those other supports. And they're out there. I think one of the biggest things that we can do is a lot of these resources are not really known by the schools. You have to find them. So if there's some kind of way, I think this is where all these minds come together, how we can get this information into the school districts, because that's where we can start. I mean, that's the only thing that a lot of parents know, especially our underserved communities. They only know the school. They don't even know any of these things exist. So I think we have to figure out a way how to get these services, even the knowledge of these services inside of the school districts, and then they can at least share with those parents.
I'd like to approach this from a slightly different perspective and from the perspective of the organizations that are delivering the services. I want to challenge organizations to actually partner with parents because these programs that are being offered to families and to parents are often created by really smart people in a back room someplace. And when they roll it out, it's kind of like, I don't know why people start, but they don't stay engaged. It's because it wasn't co-created. Research says that if you co-create with your audience, if we co-create with parents, then their attention and participation will increase up to 50%. So we know lots of really smart things, but until we can engage with the individuals that we are trying to support, we're going to keep just knowing it and not being able to share that information or have the impact that we really want to have. And if you have programs that you're currently delivering, and maybe you have, questionable retention rates, maybe take a landscape scan on who are you doing outreach with and get individuals to the table and allow them to have feedback. And then figure out what tweaks can you make so that it can be relevant for them.
Can I just add what you're saying? That she's spot on, because I think focus groups is important. I think having your participants be part of a focus group because, hey, they've been through your program, but they can give you your feedback, their point of view. It's okay, hey, let me add that. So what you're saying is spot on, just creating that focus group community with your organization.
And I can piggyback on that. So my son's school did like a focus group. It was so funny. So we attended 2 different schools. The first school, we had a lot of what we call soccer moms. So they can come to a focus group at 11 a.m., 12 a.m. in the middle of the day. But at the other school, all of these are working parents. No one is going to show up for your focus group at 12 a.m. At 12 p.m., sorry. They're going to be able to show up at your focus group at 6 p.m., correct. 7 p.m. So I think it's also, you have to think about meeting people where they are. Yes. If you can't meet the people where they are, you're not going to get any engagement. If you know that you're serving a community where it's a working class community, no one is going to show up throughout the day because they all have to work. But if you have something to say, okay, I know no one wants to come to work at 6 p.m., but we will get a full group of people here at 6 p.m. because you have to meet your people where they are.
That's good.
And as we all know, there are many organizations and agencies in here as well. If you do a focus group, just make sure you incentivize it.
Yes.
Pay. Just give something to the families because, time is precious and they're taking time out of their day to be there to help your program.
Yes.
Okay. All righty, so we're going to go ahead and transition a little bit here. And so just when it comes to the complexities of navigating systems, some of the things that we have mentioned here on stage, a lot of families oftentimes do it without support. And so let's think about how we can actually use our collaborative efforts and working in institutions and programs, and seeing also in policy spaces how we can be a part of the solution. So our next question here is, how can communities, schools, and workplaces better support parents in balancing their roles and mental health needs?
I'm going to just kick us off because I think this is like a summation of what we kind of all talked about a few minutes ago. And it's one, understanding the time commitments that are on parents. It hurts my heart when I hear professionals bad-mouthing parents. Okay? And, you know, kind of saying, oh, well, do they really care about their kid? And it's like, that really, that hurts my heart. Because absolutely parents care about their kid, but it's a lack of a acknowledgement of what that parent has on their plate and what their capacity to do all the things that they have to do. Right? When you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that parent is working to clothe, feed, house, probably their entire family. Right? And so I think it's really important that we recognize what parents are doing. And anyone in here that's a parent knows it's not easy. They don't come with the manual. They don't come with a subsidy where you get extra financial support because they're super expensive. And the older they get, the more expensive they get. So I think it's really important that we recognize all of those pieces and limitations and challenges that parents may have, and then creating kind of ways to help them overcome that. Right? So whether it's having meetings in the evenings, whether it's if you're gonna have some type of an event and it's around a mealtime, providing food, right? So just being cognizant that there are lots of challenges, and if we really want to help support them and pour into them, then we need to identify and help address what those challenges are to make it easier for them to come to the table. And no more shaming and blaming.
I would say for me, so I have a lot on my plate. I am a full-time employee. I am a doctoral student, and I'm a parent, but I'm also a caregiver. So sometimes explaining that to my employer, they're just kind of like, well, you know, but everybody has something going on. I say, yeah, people do have something going on, but number one, to be a caregiver is extremely difficult. There are days everything is going just fine. Everything is normal. And there is a day where the school can call me 5 times a day and say, we don't know what to do. Can you come get them? We need help. So sometimes you have to be understanding, but also I think there needs to be something in place other than a little checkbox training that employers do to say, oh, we covered on, you know, caregiving and, you know, diversity inside of the workplace for parents who are going through all of this. A checkbox for a 10-minute training is not enough. You need to have rooms like this and spaces like this to have true conversations to see what your employees are going through. Because if no one actually tells you out of their mouth, this is what my day looks like, you're not going to know. It is a great thing. Mental health struggles sometimes to keep up. If I didn't have a village of people that can sometimes take the load off of me, because there is swim lessons, there are tennis lessons, there's occupational therapy, there's speech therapy. All of this is one day. This is one day, and I still work 8 hours, and I go to school, and I have to do the work at night. So out of a 24-hour day, I am busy 14 hours out of that day. I have 10 hours of my own, and I'm not asking for someone to make space for me. Sometimes you just need someone to understand where you're coming from. And I think that's what a lot of parents just need, some understanding. We live in a society right now where there's very little room for compassion. I'll look on social media and I'll see things where they'll say, well, you had them, take care of them. Why are you asking the government for help? Why are you asking organizations for help? And I don't think that it's always about somebody wanting help. I just think they need a little support. Sometimes you don't need a lot. You just need just a little bit to preserve your sanity, because that's what makes you a good parent. Sometimes that 20 minutes of support is that fine line between someone abusing their child and not abusing their child. They just need just a little bit just to breathe. And I think once, as a collective, our society kind of understands that, we'll be in a whole lot better space than we are right now.
So what I'm hearing is that, you know, as agencies, as individuals out in the field doing the work, just make sure that you remember that the person that you see in front of you should be seen, right? So there are other things that are going on, and, you know, all of us have things, but just remembering that we're all people, that empathy goes a long way, and just remember to always remain and keep that thought of, let's make sure that we can see the person in front of us.
Right.
And I know you wanted to say something.
You spot on what you're saying, because it's especially with fathers, right? I know fathers wants to feel like, hey, their role matters too. And I think when we talk about from a school space, right? What are the father-led events, right? We know the common ones: dads and donuts. Okay. That's it. You know, dads were like, hey, or dads eat with your kids. But with moms, we have a lot of moms groups and stuff that comes, and mom will be in everything. So I think, again, it goes back to the flexibility of schedule. You know, most dads or father figures do work, so we have to find events that tailors in the evening times or one of their best fits them. And then workspace, right? I think sometimes now paternity leave is now being common in the workspace, right? Before it wasn't, you know, they had to use those PTOs, and, you know, but now I think workspace have to make the schedule flexible, so dads or father figures are able to have that space to connect. And I think that with the community itself, again, like Michelle and everybody's saying, is that, hey, find father-led programs, or you can create yourself so you can help that community space so they can get engaged, because again, that what matters, you know, and then I think that's important and into that space, because hey, they want to know, hey, where's something for me where I can build in that journey, especially within the communities as well, because hey, you can start with a lot of groups, and please, I always say this, a lot of people will say this in a group, and say, hey, I'm a woman, I can't lead a father group. Yes, you can. You can lead a father group, you know, because again, remember, you're creating a community space for fathers to engage and talk, right?
And one of the things that I think that we have seen, given the circumstances with society and what a lot of people may be experiencing, I want to reel it back a little bit more to a topic on mental health. And so there's been an increased spotlight on pre- and postnatal mental health in recent years. What impacts have you seen on those you serve and services that are provided?
I'm going to jump in on that one. And I'm going to kind of take it from a policy perspective. So during the last legislative session, or the session before last, so the 88th legislative session, here in Texas, there was a bill passed for 12-month coverage. So 12-month Medicaid coverage for moms post-birth. That's huge. It was only 6 months, but now we have a full year of coverage. In addition to that full year of coverage, there's one postnatal mental health screening that parents or moms can get at their first month well child visit. And so these are like little bitty incremental things. I'm not saying it is the end all to be all. During this last legislative session, there was several organizations that were trying to push for having up to four screenings that happen during the well child visit. This is really important, because anybody who has been pregnant or loves someone that's pregnant knows that once they give birth, there's like a 6-week follow-up, and then they may not go back to their OBGYN. Yeah. Right? And so who's going to be screening them for postpartum, which is more common than people recognize? Okay? And again, sorry to drop some heart-wrenching statistics, but Here in Texas, 1 in 9 women that die, it's related to some type of mental health issue post-birth. And so we need to be screening. So the legislative initiative for those 4 screenings did not pass. And now is the time, because this is when people think and talk about and plan for your next legislative session. Yes, it's only going to happen in 2027, but now is the time to have the conversations and to kind of think about what are these policy initiatives. And so that's a big one. So can we, get it so that we can get 4 screenings, which is in alignment with what the American Association of Pediatrics recommend for moms. So there are some things that are out there, but there's we have a long way to go. Because when we're talking about treating moms that have like some type of a mental health challenge, we have clinicians that aren't quite sure what are the effective interventions to use with this unique population. So there's definitely a need there. We have PeriPan that was approved, and so PeriPan is a doc-to-doc kind of referral system. So an OB can call up a psychiatrist if they have someone that they're treating who may have a mental health issue, in order that OB then receive all the information they need in order to treat that patient. Unfortunately, even though PeriPan exists, it is incredibly underutilized. Right? And so we have some initiatives out there. They aren't all being utilized. And I think it goes back to something we talked about, co-creation, the importance of co-creation. Some of these things weren't necessarily co-created with the people in mind. So really trying to understand, how do we close some of these gaps for moms?
Okay, I'm going to tell you guys all my business, but so when I had my second son, and my first postnatal screening, I was diagnosed as postpartum, and I was going through a divorce at the same time, so that exacerbated the symptoms. So I felt like I did not connect with my now 4-year-old until he was about 1. I just had zero emotion towards him. I just felt like I'm just the person that he feeds off of, and I just gave him back, but there was no real emotion tied to him. And I was like, started feeling guilty. Like I had this kid, he's been in me for, 9 months, and I feel absolutely nothing. And I'm a person that believes in going to a therapist and talking to someone, but when it comes to that's something you don't really want to, like, I don't connect with my kid and I had a baby. You're going to think you're going to be shamed for that. And so when my doctor said something to me, the funny thing, the hospital I delivered at, they had a program where if you felt anything, you could bring your baby back. And they would watch your kid for like 24 hours. And it was just like a break that they would give you. I never utilized the service. I called my mom and I said, hey, this is what the doctor said. And she was like, you know what, I'll take the kids and you just kind of sleep. And it wasn't really about the sleep. It was just about something's not right. I said, something not right. And the doctor was like, well, it's a chemical imbalance and, your hormones are getting adjusted. But for a year, I love him now. Don't get me wrong. I love him to death now. But for a year, I just really felt nothing for my baby boy. And it's a weird feeling. And so when a parent always tells, or a mother always tells me, this is what I'm feeling, I say, own those emotions, but please talk to somebody. Because what you don't want to do is get frustrated, get tired, and you actually do something to your child, because it's so easy to do it. And people don't even realize how easy it is to be so exhausted and you already don't have an emotion for it, just to neglect it. And so, like I said, if you ever come into contact with any mother that says they feel any type of way, please take it serious, because it's already enough to even say it out loud. But once they actually say it, please just do something. Do something.
I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, because there are people out there that needed to hear that. So thank you for being so vulnerable.
Thank you, Crystal. And with that, the next question is sort of in the aspect of support. So, what can we do as a resource, like many of our programs are? What can we do to provide support or provide methods of resources and things like that for families that may need some of these services that you all have mentioned or the resources that you all have mentioned? What are some things that you all have received as positive feedback from not only your own journeys, but also from families that you've served?
I'll go. For me, it's always just been thanks for just sharing. Like I said, I spend a lot of time in waiting rooms, and you'll overhear conversations. And I'll just start just blurting out stuff. And even when at school, and I'm part of all of like the parent organizations, I'll just start blurting out information, and I just start giving out information. Hey, I heard about this service. This may be something you can use, and this may be something you can use. And people are like, I just didn't know. And I just become this like knowledge bank. And I just kind of, even coming to things like this, I just take it all in, who's here, what they do, and I just regurgitate it back when I go into classrooms and things like that. And I'm just with other parents because, like I said, honestly, no one knows unless they're actually using your service. And I'm sure it may like a large population of people, but it's a very small population of people. They just don't know. So it's like you just need those foot workers just to go out into the communities and some of those events and just start telling people, this is what we do, this is what we offer, because I am so sure that, there are families that will utilize all of these services. I mean, like I said, I live in a world of a neurodiverse child, which a lot of parents, unless they have a lot of money, they don't know any of these services exist. They don't utilize any of these services. They just have a friend that babysits or a family member that babysits, and I'm like, this is doing no stimulation for your child. I found a tennis program that serves children with autism. My son has been doing it now for 2 seasons and never knew it existed, but all the parents that are in it are parents who actually can't afford to put their kids in tennis, but they're utilizing this free service. And so I'm like, what about the parents who can't afford it, but they could be using it right now? And so I've just started telling my son's OT, his speech therapist, hey, this is a service. If any parents who want to put their child in this activity, just send them their way. They're going to give them a scholarship. They're going to do it for free. But you have a lot of people who are utilizing a lot of these services who actually can afford to pay for services. So it's like you just need some foot traffic. You just need people to be out in the community just, putting little birdies in people's ears.
And I think people love free, right? Free services, free resources. And I think just to add to that, I think when it comes to like father engagement, I think fathers love to be heard, right? They love to listen to sessions. So, I think we have creative seen. It's father-led advisory boards, father-led programs where guys are just coming together and kind of discuss, hey, how we can support. I think also, too, is making a place where sharing their testimonies, right? A lot of times we realize at the end of every sessions or programs, we let dads, hey, what was your feedback? What was your relationship in that program? What was your impact? And while them writing it down, they're able to share out to the community. So making these campaigns and have this word of mouth testimonies in it, because what happens, it let people know, like you said, it be heard. They're like, wow, this program does a change for me. And not change for me alone, but just now, hopefully it can integrate in other programs, like home visiting programs or other programs right there, because what happens, these fathers or father figures, with your facilitators, it helps them to build a culture like, wow, there is something that's a need for me in both sectors, right? So I think that's something I realized that has the positive feedback I have read. And a lot of times we hear dads, when they finish, they're like, hey, how can I be a mentor? Hey, how can I start my own college? A group of dads take it and say, hey, can I bring some other fathers in my job and start a community group of fathers and stuff like that? So I think the key is that it's making sure that, like she said, the outreach is important, but also the people who is outreaching, the employees, is they compassion? Because remember, the clients are building a relationship with the person that serves them. So when they feel that bond, what happened, they're going to tell somebody else. So I think that's something we have seen and learned, and make it easy access, and make them love. It's like, wow, this is something I needed this. And like you talked about, the mental health, the support, because at first they'd be like, man, you ain't trying to teach them not to be a dad. No, we're not trying to teach you that. That's not the goal, really. It's trying to have a support space for you fathers, and you see the transformation inside and out, and it just grows in our organization. And so I think the organization plays an important, like I said, we need to have that going in our organization. We did a father-friendly checkup. It's kind of a survey, and we did it from leadership down, and we had to do a whole revamping of how we service fathers and father figures in our community.
So I'm going to do a shameless plug, but it's for a purpose because I'm going to use an example. So we have a program called Brain Builders. There's a QR code on my back if you want to snap a pic. That'll take you to the website. But Brain Builders are for individuals that are parents of children 0 to 3. And we also do work with expecting mothers. Well, one of the things that we've learned is we got to go to where the people are that we're offering the service to, right? We can't sit at home or in our offices and shoot off emails, because we end up emailing other organizations that are trying to figure out how to get their message out as well. That didn't work. So boots on the ground, right? So we're talking the libraries, we're talking the Children's Museum, we're talking the zoo. We go to where parents are and we share the information. And then when we have parents that come through the program and they love it, they become these amazing ambassadors, right? And so then they continue to share the word. So, how do we make sure that families know? We have to go to where they are in order to engage with them and talk to them.
And always mention it to anyone, even if they're not a parent. Mention it. They may know somebody that knows somebody. And so just word of mouth is still the most powerful method of communication, I think. Not so much TikTok. Sometimes there's lies on there too. But just making sure that we are continuing to engage with our community on a one-on-one. And again, going back to making sure that we see the person in front of us as well. And so as we are coming close to a closing here, just a few questions that I want to ask from each of our panelists here. And so what should we all be thinking about as we leave this discussion today?
Become a resource, not just as an organization, but as a person. Like she just said, you want to see the person in front of you. You don't want to sell something. You want to really own it. And you want to talk to that individual from a supportive standpoint. You want to be able to give them something that they don't even know that they need. Sometimes people don't even know that they need something. So just be that resource and just recognize what's going on in front of you. Sometimes somebody can be screaming for help right in front of you. But if you're not looking for the signs, you won't see it. So just kind of just pay attention to what you see. If you work with children, pay attention to the signs in the child, because sometimes the child might be showing you what's going on at home. So just be that resource.
Again, piggyback, I think resource and be that collaborator, right? Just learn how to collaborate. I think the key is that you're dealing with parents, right? You did not just mom alone, but also fathers and the children, because again, our goal is to try to make sure they get that support. So I think we provided that resource. And understand mental health, it's not a mom thing or a children thing. Mental health also deals with fathers, father figures. So I think when we bring services, I think, hey, this is just a mental health of supporting, and also understand that, hey, when you are getting sought out for mental health or these services, it's not saying that you're a failing parent. And that's not the stigma we're trying to bring. We're trying to be in support. And like you said, that outreach, put your boots on the ground and make it fun, enjoy. Like, I think you're the reflection of your program, right? If you love it, and it's going to show into your program, and be creative. Sometimes, hey, if it doesn't work this time, be available, be flexible. I realize, be new to try something new. Hey, if you have to do like a conference or a seminar or webinar to get people's attention, that's fine, because what happens, you're being adaptable to how you can service your parents and meet them where they're at. So I think that's the key of providing that resource and making it adaptable to who you're touching.
And I'm going to kind of go back to something that Crystal said, because I think it was very important, and that's going to be one of the 2 closing things I want to leave with. But what you said was grace. You said that there is very little kind of capacity for people offering grace. And I think that that's so important, right? Because we live in community, right? None of us live in isolation. We don't operate in alone, even though we may work in silos. We live in community. And it's really important, I think, that we tap back into that grace and that we truly believe and understand that at any given moment, any and every one of us are doing the absolute best that we can. The rest of us may need, the rest of you may need me to do more or better, but I'm gonna show up and do the best that I can in any given moment. And that's where that grace piece needs to come in. And then the other thing is, I'm a policy wonk. So the 90th legislative session in 2027, that may seem far away, but it's not. Now is the time to have conversations. Yes. Now is the time to talk within your groups, within your communities, what's needed, what policy barriers are in the way, and begin to plan for what you want to push forward in that 90th legislative session.
That's good.
So be active, support, and give grace.
Yes.
Okay? Well, I think we're all wrapped up here, and so just very delighted to be on stage and being able to be on stage with such delightful panelists as well. And so thank you all for being here and engaging with our session, Engaged and Empowered, Transforming Parenting for All Families panel. Thank you.